Hello and welcome, my hungry millipedes drinking milk from an orangutan. It's SJP here, and we have a video for you guys on abilities. Today we're going to be ranking every single ability in the game. We're going to discuss its pros, its cons, its ability cooldown, and everything you need to know about these abilities, and what I believe their ranking should be. Of course, you guys might have a different ranking, and that's okay. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and enjoy. I believe one of the most important factors when including ability talk is how long is the cooldown on that tower. So what we're going to do is we're going to use almost all of these abilities kind of all at once here, and we're going to watch the cooldowns come back. It doesn't really matter that we didn't activate them all, but just note that things like the Maelstrom are going to come back much, much quicker than a lot of these other guys. The Glue and the Ice are going to come back a little bit quicker than a lot of the other ones as well. So instead of going through every single tower and talk about every single ability cooldown, I decided to go through with it and do the math on it and make you guys a little chart here. So Tack and Dark Champion are at 20 seconds, Cannon Ice and Glue at 30 seconds to come back, Spactory and Dartling Gun at 40. A lot of towers in the 45-second. Boomerang, Wizard, Super, Village, Engineer, Ace, Boat. Dart Monkey was 45, but it was really like 47, so I don't really know what's going on with that, unless I messed up. Ninja, Alchemist, Druid Farm, Heli Move, the Mortar, and the Sub all at 60 seconds. And then at 90 seconds, we've got the Heli Money and the Sniper Money. So clearly, the money-making abilities are going to be the longest by far. So this doesn't really matter all that much. Just make sure you keep that in mind when thinking about if an ability is good. If it has a really, really long cooldown, it might not be as effective as having a really short cooldown. So in this video, we're going to go over the 4th tier abilities only, not the 5th tier, so please keep that in mind. I have not done any testing on 5th tier abilities with their times and whether or not they change or anything like that. So let's focus on the 4th tiers today, and let's start off with the Super Monkey Fan Club. I know I'm still harping on you guys, but if you want to be super nice, click the settings button, click the creator support icon, and type in lowercase letters SJB to support me. Thank you so much. Let's go over the pros first. So it's great against the Moab class Bloons. You're going to see we're not doing very many pops at all, but once we start to use this ability, it just absolutely slobber knocks these BFBs and takes them down very, very quickly. It can be powered up further with buffs like this primary training, or even going all the way up to primary expertise and things like that, which is pretty exciting. But it's got some weaknesses. It's weak against small balloons like ceramics and lower, or at least not great against them, and it requires a full 10 Dart Monkeys to actually be useful here, which kind of takes up a lot of space. The cooldown is pretty long, and in addition, you do require yourself to get further upgrades like Enhanced Eyesight and things to actually make this guy more viable as an ability, which is just kind of a lot of work. So we're going to rank our abilities here based on how good I believe they are, and I'm going to go with the Super Monkey Fan Club in the C list. He's really not that great in my opinion. There's just so many other better abilities that don't require so much work. Next up, we've got the Turbocharge, which makes the monkey attack incredibly fast for 10 seconds. I believe it's about 15 times the speed, which is kind of absurd from his 3rd tier attack already. So his pros are that he is ridiculously powerful for the price, because he is pretty cheap, only $4,500. He basically doesn't miss, especially with this Monkey Knowledge upgrade, which makes the boomerangs go around twice before they decide to go away, instead of just once, like they used to be, I guess. He does have some cons, though. If you do not go for the bottom path upgrade, and instead go for the more powerful Glaives upgrade, of course, that means you do not get any lead popping power. It doesn't affect us that much, but it's still a weakness that he has. In addition, the 3rd tier boomerang, while not bad, is probably the weakest out of all 3rd tier boomerangs in the game, and that could make you not want to go for the 4th tier if you're getting a weaker 3rd tier. So where do we put the Turbocharge? I will admit that I don't actually use this guy that much, but he is really, really powerful in the mid-game, and that's the only issue that he has. He kind of lacks late-game popping power, so if you are going 80+, Turbocharge may not be as effective as you want it to be. That's why we're going to put it in the A and not in the S tier. Next up, we have the Moab Assassin, the Assassinate ability, which shoots out a special missile against Moab or BFB class, oh my god, class Bloons, all over the place, and he just boop, shoots it, and he pops one of those guys down into nothing. The pros are that he's got a very quick cooldown at only 30 seconds. He's great against round 60, 80, and 100, and as a base tower, he is more powerful than the 3rd tier upgrade. Cross paths are important for this guy as well. He does get more powerful in that sense, but he's got one big weakness. He is unuseful, or not as powerful as he should be, for almost the entirety of the game. There's not that many rounds that you're going to get a lot of extra damage out of this guy that you would not get from just spamming a bunch of third tiers instead. And that is a big con for me. He's got a lot of greatness to him, with a few weaknesses, well, one big weakness, and that's why I gotta put him all the way into the B list. He's really not as bad as I'm making him out to be. If you spam some Moab Assassins, they're still going to be really powerful. Instead of spamming a bunch of Moab Maulers, this is still a good route to go. Next up, we have the Blade Maelstrom. Covers the area in a storm of blades. So, first of all, it has a ridiculously fast cooldown, if you guys haven't noticed. It's only 20 seconds. It's super powerful. I mean, that was a bunch of ceramics, and for the measly couple $1,000s we spent on him, that's pretty awesome. He's also super cheap, which is fan-frickin-tastic, and I'm really, making this guy seem like he's really, really powerful here, because what are his cons, though? He doesn't pop lead. I guess that kind of sucks. All right. He can now, I believe, also be blocked by walls. Positioning does matter a pretty good amount here for your Maelstrom, and whether or not you time it right, whether those Stroms will actually be powerful. And he's not super great in the late game, but because he's so cheap, are you really planning on having him be a good late game tower? Not really. So, after all that is being said, the pros just severely, severely outweigh the cons in my opinion, and I'm going to bring him all the way up into the S+ tier. He is so cheap and so powerful, it is hard to stop him. Next up, we have Snowstorm. The Snowstorm ability freezes all regular balloons on the screen, briefly freezes white and zebra and camo, and slows Moab class balloons. Wow, that is a lot of stuff that he does here. So, what are his pros? Well, he does that Moab slowdown, but it's not very much. It's got a crazy long balloon stun, which is awesome. It increases range on the third tier automatically, so getting this guy is pretty important. And, like they said, he pops zebras and camos with the ability, which is really interesting. You wouldn't expect that out of a random Snowstorm ability here. Not that you're going to be able to use it multiple times against these balloons, but just in case, you could pop all balloons down into nothing, which is just kind of cool. But it's got a couple cons. First of all, it freezes the balloons. I know that sounds like it's just a normal, ordinary sentence there, but it freezes the balloons, which makes a lot of your other towers that have regular pierce not work properly, so you have to think about your combinations when using this guy. And the Moab stun is just ridiculously small. I mean, look at this. It's like, how much is it even slowing down for like 2 seconds? Who cares about that? It's not much. I'll be honest, I have a hard time placing this guy. I'm not exactly sure where to put him. I don't use him all that much, mostly because I'm not a huge ice fan. I'm going to put him down in the B list because I believe that him freezing all the balloons causes a little bit more chaos than it actually helps. So I can't put him any higher than that, even though he is cool, kind of fun. Next up, we have the Glue Strike ability. Glues all balloons on the screen, causing them to take more damage from all sources while it lasts. So it's crazy awesome against the balloons, obviously. We send out round 6 to 3 here, and you can glue every single balloon on the screen. It does extra damage, which is really, really cool. It means all of your other towers are going to do more powerful work on top of this stuff, but there are a lot of cons. It needs bottom path to be effective, in my opinion. I think the top path is going to be significantly worse. The ability does not really last a super duper long time, and the balloons need to be on the screen when the ability is already activated. I feel like it's a little bit almost counterproductive in that sense that we're already gluing all the balloons and we need to use ability on top of that to actually do anything, and it's really, really, really bad against Moab class balloons, obviously. So, there's a lot going on with the glue gunner, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan. So clearly I'm not a huge fan of the glue strike, so where does he go? It could go realistically anywhere, in anybody's opinion, but in my opinion, somebody's got to go in the bottom here, and out of all of these guys, I'm going to rank him the worst. He's not useless, it's just he doesn't fit my playstyle. Next up, we have the Supply Drop Sniper, which is very difficult to give pros and cons for because all it does is make money. The question is, does it make more money than other things? And that answer is complicated. It's not exactly a cut and clean answer. When you use this ability, though, he is going to drop a big crate of Crash, which you have to actively pick up. You could also have some sort of banana farmer or something as well, if that's something you want to do. But the cooldown is ridiculously long on this guy, so you're not going to use it all that often, which is actually kind of a positive. You just use it every once in a while. And he is effective if you use him in the late game, not the early game. And he's really, really effective if you're willing to stall the balloons to use the ability 3 times every single round. That all being said, where do we want to put him? Again, I think a lot of people have different opinions, and he really could go just about anywhere, whether or not you like to make money or you don't like to make money using this scenario. But I got to put him pretty high up. I think he does a good amount of damage for the amount of money you're paying for him, and getting that extra money is really, really cool. Being one of the most effective late-game towers at making money is just cool. So we're going to pop him down in the A list. Next up, we have the Ground Zero ability. The bomb's damage increase significantly. Ground Zero ability drops a huge bomb that destroys most things on the screen. And as you can tell, it's pretty good. It's overall a very decent ability to use. Question is, do the pros outweigh the cons? So first of all, it's obviously crazy awesome against balloons. It pretty much pops them all instantaneously. It's a little weaker against mobs, depending on what level of mob they are, and it could micro or manage how much damage you do to these guys before you use the Ground Zero ability, which makes him complicated as an ability. It does affect all balloons on the screen, which is really cool, and he's really, really good on these wicked hard chimps runs for hardcore high-tier maps. He's been nerfed many times over, and he still ends up being very powerful. But as the cons come around, he is outclassed by a lot of other abilities on non-hard maps. For example, a map like this. And he costs a pretty significant amount of money to get not much bang for your buck in the late game out of these extra bomb damage. So I will put him in my B list. I think a lot of people would probably put him in their S list or their A list, but I'm going to put him in my B list because I don't usually play a lot of crazy hard chimps runs. So he has not been all that important to my gameplay. I think he's cool. I think he's fun, but he's also just not the best in my opinion. Next up, we have the Support Chinook. So, ability drops lives and cash crates, or can pick up and redeploy most monkey types, which is really cool. So, let's go over the pros and the cons really quickly. First of all, pros is it moves things, and that is cool. I think that's cool. Awesome. It is the best moneymaker in the game. In addition to being the best moneymaker in the game, it also gives you lives. So, if you're not playing chimps, that's also really cool. He's just a cool tower. But the cons. You're not very powerful, clearly. We're not doing that much damage. And you don't really use this very often. It's cool to use, but you're really not using it all that often to actually do anything of reasonable value. I can see it being useful on, again, very hard chimp runs when there's multiple exits and things like that. But that being said, that is more of a rarity than a common occurrence. So for me, I'm going to put him in the A category. I think he's pretty beastly. Even though he's just a support tower and has support abilities, those support aspects are still very powerful and very fun to use in the game. Next up, we have the Mortar artillery battery. Bombardment ability. Keep in mind that this did not used to exist. This was added to the game. It was the only tower without an ability, and they finally decided to add it as an ability. I don't even know when. A year ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Bombardment ability unleashes a rapid-fire attack in slightly wider area. Main attack upgrades to 3 barrels for incredibly fast attacks. So, this is ridiculously powerful. That is its pro. It's super freaking strong. It does a lot of damage. Alright, I don't even know how else to put it. It just does a lot of freaking damage. Let's set it 100 ceramics here and just watch the beautifulness. It just owns. It just owns. Even if you sent out a lot of Moabs in here, it is not bad at all. Alright, we're going to reset the cooldown. We're going to reuse this guy. It's popping even Moab-class balloons. 100 Moab-class balloons. We're doing damage to them and popping some of this stuff. It's kind of absurd how strong this guy actually is. That being said, his con is that you have to micro him. Yeah, you got to micro. So keep that in mind when you're using the artillery battery. So I'm not somebody who usually minds the micro that much. I could see how some people might want to put him in the C or the D category, but I think I have to go all the way up to the S+ category. I'm a big fan. I'm a really big fan, personally. I think he's super strong, I think he's super fun, and I think he deserves to be in the S class. Next up, we have the Dartling gun's Rocket Storm. The Rocket Storm ability launches a powerful storm of rockets in a wide cone. So the pros are of this guy is that he's actually really powerful. Those rockets do a lot of damage and a lot of balloon popping power. That's pretty sweet. He's also pretty good against both balloons and Moabs. So if we decide to send out, a big chunk of rainbow. Oh my god, why did I send out so many? Big chunk of rainbows or ceramics or Moabs or whatever. You notice we do a significant amount of damage here. But the cons is that, well, he's wildly inaccurate. I don't know if you guys actually saw that ability in action, but it's pretty much all over the place. Unless you have a lot of balloons on the screen in a lot of different places, positioning is going to matter a lot on this guy, and getting that right can mean the death of you or not the death of you. So, where are we going to put him? Again, I feel like he could go in a lot of different spots here, but because he's been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed again, I'm going to put him in the B slot. I think he's fair, I think he's pretty good, but there are some better options out there in a lot of situations. Next up, we have the Summon Phoenix, the Wizard. So this guy summons a Phoenix ability that wreaks havoc for a whopping 20 seconds. So let's see this guy in action. The pros are that he is pretty powerful, actually, for what you're getting out of him. For the base price that you're paying for him. He's good against both balloons and Moabs here, which is pretty awesome. But he's got a couple weaknesses. He's kind of bad against purples. Well, no purple popping power, but usually that's not a major issue. And he's got a minor lack of control. You don't really get to control him, and if you use him at the wrong time, the Phoenix could be up here and shooting the wrong balloons instead of trying to hit the balloons on the very front, and that can be kind of sucktastic at certain times. That being said, he's still a pretty powerful tower here, and I would actually recommend him. So I'm going to put him in my B list. Again, a very reasonable guy, but he just seems outclassed by some other abilities, and or just doesn't seem like the guy that I want to go for if I have to already go for a Dragon's Breath on top of him. Next up, we have the Tech Terror. The Annihilation ability destroys most balloons completely and utterly within its blast radius. So it's got a pretty powerful ability, obviously, because it's a Tech Terror. It's got a pretty good base attack here without needing to get any of the other upgrades in here as well. It kills everything in its range. Bluey! But its cons are obviously it has to have things within its range, so if you don't position this guy perfectly, that can be a little bit weak in here. And it's not as great as you might imagine against the bigger, beefier balloons like Reinforced Oh My Gods and Bads. For the amount of money you're spending, he is a very, very good tower, though, and that is why I'm going to put him in my A tier list. I don't use him all that often, but he's actually pretty powerful. Next up, we have the Bloon Sabotage. This is the ninja's 4th tier ability. Well, okay. He slows down the biggest and the beefiest balloons in the game. So, Moabs, BFBs, Oh My Gods are all affected by this guy, and he can decrease their speed to half for a whopping 15 seconds. This also affects other balloons on the screen that aren't just big, beefy balloons, so that should be noted. And it can basically increase the popping power of all of your other towers. It lasts a pretty reasonable amount of time here as well, but here are some major cons. It doesn't affect the bad, which not much affects the bad, but that is important to note. Timing can be sort of hard to do, depending on where and when you want to pop the balloons. And it does have a really long cooldown, so you're not going to be using this guy all that often. In addition, it basically doesn't do anything else besides just slowing down the balloons, and for that amount of cost, it can be a pretty penny. So where are we going to put him? I know a select few people that would 100% put him in the S tier, but he's been nerfed a couple times around, and I think some of those people might knock him back down to an A tier. Me personally, though, I don't really understand this guy. I'd rather use Moab glue or something like that to slow the balloons down, kind of keep them on the screen. I'm going to put him all the way down in the C list. Some people might hate me for that, but that's where I honestly believe that he deserves to go right now. There's other things like the Snowstorm that outclass him, and blue that just is better to use in my opinion. Next up, we have the Transforming Tonic. Transformation ability turns Alchemist into a powerful attack monster for 20 seconds. That sounds pretty cool. So what are the pros? Well, it does a pretty good amount of popping power. I mean, check this out. This is a bunch of Moabs here. And we are able to not only damage them, but hurt a lot of them and kill a lot of them with our Transformation Tonic ability, in combination with our third tier. Now, this is where I have to bring my con in, and I have to explain the con, because it's not just like a... Ugh. The con makes no sense because you would almost never buy a Transformation Tonic at all. Because the only time that buying a third tier makes sense is in the late game, usually round 81 plus. Usually. So buying this guy means you have to buy him past round 80, and by that point he becomes obsolete in so many ways it's almost absurd. So in my opinion, this guy just doesn't make much sense. And when you don't make any sense, to me, you go down at the bottom. I would understand if some people want to put him in the C, or maybe the B, but there's no way he's going any higher than that for almost anybody, man. Next up, we have the Jungle's Bounty. So this is an ability that makes you money, it generates cash per each use, plus an extra amount per banana farm near the druid, and can also grab 2 balloons with fines at once instead of the 1 from the previous thing. So the pros are that it makes a lot of money, if you're willing to spend the time and effort to make it happen, which is our con. It needs to be by farms, and it needs to be by a lot of farms, which are already making a pretty good amount of cash, and that means he's kind of difficult to get going and to use properly here. It is very important to have banana farms by you, because that makes 720 compared to our 240 here. Triple with just 4 banana farms. I think go higher than that if you want to go cray-cray. So it makes a lot of money is the clear thing, but he's difficult to use because you have to combine him in addition to farms, in addition to slowing down the game, in addition to other things. It's just tricky to use overall. That being said, by himself, he's actually still a pretty good ability. So I do not believe that he deserves S-Class by any means, but I would say that B is actually too low for me. If you're able to use the Jungle's Bounty, and you're willing to just spend a little time and effort on him, he's really good. So that's why we're going to put him up in the A tier. Alright, IMF loan. Pros. Gives you money when you actually need it. Cons, everything else. I hate him. I don't like him. When you use the ability, not only do you have to pay back $10,000, you have to pay back $12,000 because there's interest involved. And I hate that. I freaking hate it, guys. I do not like paying interest for anything, so you could suck my big fat balls with this negative $12,000. Get out of here. You're an F-class, bro. I didn't even make an F-class. I don't like you at all. I understand why some people might like him. I hate him. Next up, we have the Spike Storm. Shoots out a thick layer of spikes over the entire track. Please keep in mind that the cross paths do matter here for the ability as well, which is very important for you if you want to pop DDTs, for example, or just have double the popping power with a 1-4-0. So, anyways, these guys are pretty powerful. I don't even really want to have a pros and cons list necessarily. He's basically really good against Moabs, and his cons are he's not that great against the Bloons. Other than that, he's pretty cool to use. If you're willing to combine him with some other towers like Ice Tower, it can be uber duper duper effective, because basically you pop the Moabs with the Spike Storm, and then you just freeze them right next to you, and something else pops the Bloons while you worry about the Moab Glass Bloons. So combinations are important, whether that's a pro or a con. Still, I find him quite clutch in a lot of situations, and I've got to put him in the A class. Whenever I'm unsure about what I want to add to my team, Spike Storm is an obvious answer. Next up, we have Call to Arms. It gives nearby monkeys plus 50% attack speed and pops for a short period. The pros are that he's really, really powerful, or makes all of your towers that already exist very, very powerful. The con is that you have to be within range, which, let's be honest here, it's not always easy to keep all of your towers within this small little bitty range here. Even if you combine it with a village or something like that, it could be difficult to keep everybody inside of that range right there. So, let's rank him, I guess. To be honest, I do not use this guy enough. I would understand where a lot of people would put him in the S tier. I'm just gonna lock him in the A tier because I think he's very powerful. If you're willing to use him right. I find him a little boring personally, and that's why I tend to not use him as much as I should, and that's probably why I kept him in A. He's really good, but I don't know. I don't want to use him. He's boring. I would like to preface this ability by saying that he has been nerfed many times over, and they finally found a reasonable way to keep him fair. They made it so now it's based on mostly the amount of money that you spend on that tower. I believe it's something like the more money you spend, the less time it's going to last. So if you use your overclock ability, for example, on... let's test it out real quick. All right, so I'm going to overclock this guy, I'm going to overclock this guy, I'm going to overclock this guy. I'm going to see which one goes away first. So I was pretty quick with it, but this one's definitely going to go away first. It went away when it was about like 3/4 through its cooldown. This one is going to go away right when its ability cooldown is going to come back, and this one is going to last even longer. So it is based on how much money you're spending on that tower. That being said, it's still a very, very powerful upgrade if you're willing to buy him to power up a super-powered, already amazing-tastic tower you've got on the screen. He's definitely worth it if you're willing to micro. So for me, I believe the best place to put him is in the A class. He is that awesome support tower that if you're willing to use him, he is quite powerful, but you have to use him properly, I guess. Don't be overclocking a base heli pilot by any means. Next up, we have the Monkey Pirate, which adds 2 cannons to the ship, and cannons attack do more damage. Moab takedown ability harpoons a Moab class balloon and brings it down. Please keep in mind that the Moab class balloon is not including Oh My God class balloons, so it's only BFBs and lower, which is kind of upsetting, I guess. That being said, the pros are that he is ridiculously powerful as a base tower. He does not need more work for him to be ridiculously powerful. We're going to set out a bunch of rainbows, we're going to set out some ceramics, and you're just going to watch the ownage sauce here. I mean, it's just like ridiculous amounts of pops. You should probably get the double shot in addition to him, but it's good. It's really, 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 really good. But obviously his weakness is that you don't really use the harpoon ability all that often. There's not that many BFBs coming out, and even when there are, you want to pop more than one of them, and that means that it's kind of tricky to decide how to use him properly. So this could be a recency bias, I will admit it, but I am actually going to, believe it or not, put him in the S-class tiers. Alright, not for the ability itself, but for the power that he has as a very cheap, very effective tower. Just in general. And the reason why I'm putting him there is, again, because I think he's almost more powerful than just about any of these other towers on the screen, and that is kind of ridiculous to me. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody here. This will be our last, but definitely not least, first strike capability. A devastating missile strike targeting the largest balloon on the screen, plus splash damage. So, let's talk pros. It can insta-kill a frickin' Oh My God plus splash damage for a pretty reasonably low price, and you can continuously use him on BFBs and other things as well. That is pretty cool, my friends. But the cons are it does have a pretty long cooldown, and in the late game he starts to fall off, because don't forget, these Oh My Gods, even though they're getting insta-killed on round 1, by the time you get to round 99 and so, it will not be quite as powerful as that, and you might not be able to insta-kill these guys anymore in one single hit. You might have to start getting ready to do other weird things with this guy, specifically on the bad and the reinforced Oh My Gods. That all being said, let's rank him. So again, he could go in a lot of different places depending on your playstyle and how you want to do things. Personally, I don't use him that much, but I still have to put him in the A tier because he is a great late-game, high-quality chimps player, and he's one of the best ways to pop the bad at the end of the game as well. If you can time it and do it right, you could just insta-kill everything, I'm pretty sure, with the first strike capability from a bad down to nothing, which is just straight up amazing, if you ask me. So, this is our tier list, guys. We've got 3 S's, a lot of A's, quite a few B's, and just a few C's and D's, and I believe that is what makes the most sense to me, because there's a lot of abilities in this game, and most of them are going to be very useful and very helpful in our game. This guy should be below the map. Bruh, yeah, let's put it down there. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to press that like button for me. Don't forget to subscribe, and of course, have a super duper delicious day.